Welcome to the Fictional Physicist, where we look at the laws of time travel, teleportation, and basic physics by how they are presented in fiction. I'm your host, the Fictional Physicist. Let's start the show. Don't forget to like and subscribe. In 1985, a movie was released that changed the way I looked at storytelling. It introduced me to skateboards and rock and roll. But most importantly, it introduced me to the concept of time travel. As my first time travel story and one of my favorite film series, Back to the Future is an iconic misadventure through time, where young Marty McFly is trapped in 1955 and accidentally stops his parents' first meeting and essentially puts his own existence in danger. This story, like all time travel stories, has rules and consistencies that hold the whole story together. What are those rules? Do they hold up? Let's take a look and see. The first rule is that at the beginning of each movie in the series, the time travel scene within that movie hasn't happened yet, meaning that the events before the movie are not affected by the events in the movie. Marty's family is different after his time travel than they were before the time travel, meaning that Marty made changes in the past that affected it. So if his time travel had already occurred, then his family would have been the same after we saw the events transpire. The time machine limitations. The iconic DeLorean time machine is one of the most recognizable vehicles in the world. Famous for breaking the time barrier at 88 miles per hour, the time machine is the cause of all of the adventures Marty and Doc face through time. But what can it do and what can it not do? The time machine only travels through time. It does not go through space other than the normal way a car does. It has to be traveling at 88 miles per hour in order to go through time in the first place. And the fact that the primary device for time travel is called the flux capacitor, it can be assumed that in order to go through time there must be a time flux that must be capacitated. Somehow this opens up a temporal portal that the vehicle must go through. The speed may be necessary because the portal is only opened for a split second and the vehicle needs that speed to make it through before it closes. The time machine can only travel in the timeline in which it currently exists. The time machine cannot jump timelines. It is established in Back to the Future 2 that when you change the past you create an alternate timeline. The DeLorean can never return to the original timeline, only the one created by its time travel. The Back to the Future trilogy was such an influence on me, and one reason is because it introduced me to the P word. No, not that P word. I actually first heard that one from a Christmas movie. The word I'm referring to is the word paradox. In terms of this discussion, it's contradictions in the established reality caused by events presented in the story. In the world of Back to the Future, time has a set path. Things happen the way they are supposed to happen, and to change that has consequences. The first thing that happens when Marty goes through time is he hits a scarecrow. Seems pretty innocent, right? Well, now Old Man Peabody's got to replace the scarecrow, which is not what originally happened. But what if in the original timeline Peabody stayed home, but this time he was in an accident that he was never supposed to be in? There are literally infinite possibilities on what could have happened from that one little change. Millions of videos have pointed out that Marty's running over a pine tree resulted in the changing of the name for the mall from Twin Pines Mall to Lone Pine Mall. This is the first real piece of evidence that we see that Marty had changed the future. When Marty pushed his father out of the way of the car and got hit by it himself, he prevented what was meant to be his parents' first meeting. This initially creates what's called the grandfather paradox. This basically asks, can a time traveler kill their grandfather before their parent is conceived, thus negating their own existence? As evidence from the photo, Marty may have changed the timeline so that he never existed. But if that was the case, how could Marty have gone back in time to prevent their meeting? There are two possible answers to this question. Either one, Marty not existing will result in him never going back and him being created only to go back to stop his creation only to not exist, resulting in him never going back and him being created only to go back to stop his creation only to not exist, in an infinite pair of parallel loops. Or number two, and this is the most likely, Marty cannot stop his own creation because he was supposed to exist, and thus time will fix whatever needs to be fixed to make sure the continuum is maintained. time will correct what needs to be corrected. When Marty screws up his parents' first meeting, he realizes that the moment that has to happen is that they have to kiss at the dance. That is the point of no return. When the moment comes, George is pushed away by a bully and starts skulking away as Marty disappears. Then suddenly George returns out of nowhere, dispatches the bully and gets that kiss. This sets everything back and Marty is alive. But why did George go back? He was skulking away. Then suddenly he's a strong man standing up for his woman? What changed? Nothing. He did it because he's supposed to do it. It's their density to be together. One of the main story points in the movie is how Marty caused things we saw at the beginning of the movie to happen. The primary examples are Marty giving Goldie Wilson the idea to run for mayor, and Marty giving Chuck Berry the idea for Johnny Be Good. But as we established earlier, the time travel hadn't happened yet, which means that Marty had no influence on those events. This is an example of predestination, where no matter what is changed, there are certain things that will always turn out the same way. Example, George and Lorraine are predestined to marry and have those 3 kids. Nothing Marty does can change that. In the case of Goldie Wilson, Marty does mention the idea of him running for mayor before he originally had the idea. So while he may have initiated the thought before Goldie had it originally, Goldie would have been mayor of the town regardless because he was supposed to. The irony is that by bringing up the idea prematurely, Marty may have altered the future in ways we don't even see. 1955 was at the start of the civil rights movement, and Marty putting that thought into Goldie's head at that time may have made him run during that tumultuous time and on a completely different message and platform. But the fact is that the only reason Marty said it in the first place was because he knew that Goldie was going to be mayor in the future. He acquired this knowledge because of the history that Goldie laid out before him, which he now gave to Goldie. This is an example of the bootstrap paradox. This is the term for when a person from the future brings an item or information from the future and gives it to the source of the item or information in the past, which results in the time traveler receiving it themselves in the first place. Another possible example of the bootstrap paradox in Back to the Future is the thought that Marty wrote Johnny Be Good before Chuck Berry did. The song was originally released in 1958, 3 years after the events in the movie take place. There is even a moment during the song where Chuck Berry's cousin, Marvin, calls him and has him listen to the song. But if you notice, this call does not happen until the song proper has been completed. So all Chuck would have heard is Marty's crazy solo and wailing on the guitar. It seems unlikely that he would have gotten the actual song from that. So put all of these theories together and we have one paradox leading to another and another in a crazy loop that still somehow makes sense. So let's break down the timelines created in the first movie. Timeline 1. Chuck Berry writes Johnny Be Good, Goldie Wilson becomes mayor, George and Lorraine meet, have their kiss and raise 3 kids. George's self-esteem is low due to his lifetime oppression from his high school bully, Biff, and he basically teaches his kids that it's better not to try than to face the possibility of failure. Marty and his siblings are raised on the story of how his father was hit by their grandfather's car, and this led to their very existence. And most importantly, Doc Brown invented time travel on his own with no influence from Marty. As a result of this, Doc is murdered and Marty accidentally goes back to 1955, to the very date where Doc made the breakthrough that led to that invention. When Marty interferes with his parents' first meeting, he actually changes the story of how his parents met. Now instead of it being a story about his mother falling in love with an injured George, it's about a mysterious person who appears into their lives and teaches George self-confidence and self-worth. Enough so that he defeats the bully that was supposed to torture him his whole life and not only earn the love of Lorraine but to live his life much more ambitiously and successfully. They still live in the same house, but it's much nicer and more modernly decorated. His parents are affectionate and do things together which they didn't before. And his brother and sister are more confident and successful. They are essentially different people, which means Marty was a different person too. This world's Marty may have pursued his music career and been very successful. But because of the loop created by Doc's time travel, that Marty disappears and goes back to his own time machine adventures, which would have been different from the Marty that we followed. He would have grown up hearing the story of Calvin Klein and upon pushing his father out of the way, may have realized that he was in fact the time-traveling savior. This would cause an infinite loop of Martys and Docs living through infinite versions of the same adventure over and over again. Do these theories make sense? Do they unravel at the seams? Well, we will look at that in another video, so please like and subscribe to see how we tear apart our own theories in that video. Goodbye. And thank you for watching The Fictional Physicist.